if you're staring at the ceiling every night thinking about it, and it's that itch that you have to scratch, then maybe that's your sign that, hey, venture out into the unknown a little bit and be able to assume a little risk. Maybe not reckless risk, but I think a lot of success we achieve is like right at that threshold of risk.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Diefendorfer, and I'm so glad that you are here. We love seeing you dive into these episodes week after week, and it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode that helps you level up that mental fitness, that mental toughness, so that you can stay dangerous. If this is your first time to the Mountain Tough show, I do want to make sure you know that you do get 6 weeks of free training on the Mountain Tough app just for listening to these episodes. All you need to do to get your 6 weeks of free training is go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, and enter the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's MTNPOD, all caps, all one word. Today we have a special episode. We have an in-person guest that swung through the Mountain Tough Lab. He's been on the show before. This is his return visit. On the show today in the lab, we have the owner and the founder of Born Primitive, Bear Hanlin. It's an amazing, amazing episode, and he's going to let the community know about some incredible stuff that BP has been doing. They did it last year, and they're doing it again this year. Last year, he said he was going to pay off $5 million of veteran medical debt. They ended up paying off $11 million. He's doing it again this year, and they're hoping to set those sights really high, paying off close to $25 million in veteran medical debt. But on the episode, he's going to really talk about why that matters and how important that is, not only for the people receiving that forgiveness, but for the country as a whole. So stand by for Bear Hanlin. It was cool to roll out to a Bozeman church with you this morning.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I figured I'm out here on a Sunday. I texted you, I'm like, hey, man, what if we did a church, get a pump, and then do a podcast? And you were like, done with a period. I was like, yes.
That's like my normal, not with that podcast, but
yeah.
that's what we do on Sunday too. I always roll in with the family for church at 11, but a lot of times I'll come in here early and get a big workout in.
Nice.
Because it's nice to have a chance at the gym when no one else is in there, because even our facility, there's always some sort of distraction, which we try to minimize, but there's always someone that comes up and asks you a question, or someone pulls into the parking lot. But on a Sunday, man, you can just like get in the zone.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I always go to right after church. I always pack my gym clothes and like pop the pre-workout on my drive there, and then it's like my longer workout. It's the time it's like, all right, I don't have to be anywhere. I can like do an extra, longer warm up and actually stretch afterwards and do all the things that I want to do during the week when I have to like rush to the office, So yeah, it's my time. So
yeah, and you get some extra time so you can like hit all those things that you normally don't have time for.
Yep,
it's nice.
Definitely.
We were talking about it at church today. We went to my church here, Journey in Bozeman, and just like a packed house. It's been packed the last couple weeks for sure, where they have ushers looking for those final couple seats at the end right when service is going to start. But it's just, there's something different in the air right now. We were chatting about where more and more people are talking about their faith. Statistically, they're saying that the few weekends after Charlie Kirk's assassination, there was all-time record church attendance in America. They've never seen more Americans in church than I think either the weekend after or the second weekend after his death. So it's an interesting time to be a Christian man in America. Like, it was taboo a few years ago to talk about it. Now the tides are turning. There's a spiritual element in the air right now that's super awesome, I think.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too, man. And I think people are being more vocal about it, and I think that's the start of it. And you and I talked about this, like, while it's probably hard for us to kind of see it, a lot of guys have approached me at church that were like listening to my podcast or whatever, and they say, hey, you guys like set an example. So when you're talking about faith on your podcast, like, hey, that influences people because it nudges people in that direction of like, well, hey, if he's talking about it and he's taking his family, maybe I should, finally, take that step. And the more of that we have, I think we get momentum behind that. And I hope it's like, I'm not plugged into obviously like the college scene right now, but I would love to see like, young men in college, is it starting to, take hold there? You know what I mean? Because that would be really neat. Because I know, when I was in college, like very few of us were going to church on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like typically if I was in my football season, like we had a Sunday morning lift and we had to do like watch film and do all that stuff. So we couldn't have probably if we wanted to. But when in the off season, I wasn't thinking about going to church on Sunday. I was thinking about probably licking my wounds, having too many beers the night before, right? But I think if we could get it with some of the younger generation too, that would be a really good sign. But I'm liking what I'm seeing, and I hope it continues. It's almost interesting. We almost had to create like a counterculture back to like it should have never got there. And I think we all need to be, kind of alert to the forces that out there that are trying to, squash that, you know what I mean? And make sure that we, we push back against it and that we lead our communities and we set a good example.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the pendulum swings and then it has to have a correction, and then it swings and it has to have a correction. And, we've seen that through history over and over again. History keeps repeating itself on that. And it's kind of like we hit the far side of a pendulum swing, and it kind of was enough is enough. And the Bible talks about that happening with things that are evil being called good and things that are good being called evil. And it seems like with America in 2023, 2024, there was a lot of good things being called evil and a lot of evil things being called good. And it was almost like we needed a catalyst to be like, all right, enough is enough. We aren't going to be silent anymore. We're going to be more bold, more courageous. But it took a while to get there.
Yeah, and I would imagine, not to compare the two events, but I wonder after 9/11 if there was a similar kind of reaction. It's like, I think when people almost feel helpless and there's nowhere else to go, like faith is kind of the last option, which I wish it wasn't. I wish it was the first for most, but, that creates that catalyst that we did need. So it's, obviously his death was tragic, but if there is a silver lining to it, I think it's the response we're seeing from, all over the world. Honestly, you see like this stuff in England and like other places. You're like, man, this is rippling further than we ever thought possible.
Massive ripple effects. Yeah. I mean, it's like we're witnessing more of like a martyr experience. I think with like Charlie Kirk's death, where because of his assassination at a young age, it's going to impact billions of people that may have never heard about him without an assassination happening. So it's almost like a martyr moment where because he became a martyr, there are millions of people watching his videos today on YouTube about his faith that would have never once clicked on him before. So that part of it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, they made him immortal. Really, I mean, it'll live on forever.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
When did your faith start becoming pretty real for you?
I mean, I grew up, Catholic, and we were the go a couple times a year, Christmas and Easter kind of vibe. I always believed in God. Like I would always pray before football games, and I mean, this is nerdy, but even like before math tests and stuff. When I was like, because I was like super, like hyper obsessive over like getting straight A's, So I always like knew there was a higher power, but it wasn't like a close relationship. And then I really started going the last probably 3 years. I was just going through a lot of hard stuff in my life, and I was finally like, well, hey, like, why don't I start going back to church on Sundays and just kind of see? And it immediately helped, man. I sit right up front every Sunday, probably blocking everyone's view because of my big head. And it was just so relatable, obviously, taking the word and weaving it into our everyday challenges and experiences, and, allowing us to, and obviously this is always a work in progress, but allowing us to kind of, submit to the bigger plan that is happening, you know what I mean, and not trying to control everything. Especially for me, I'm very type A. I try to control all the variables to, you know what I mean, kind of hopefully lead to a successful outcome. But that can be exhausting, and when hard things happen in your life, you know, you have to be able to kind of submit to like, all right, there's a bigger plan here, and I need to like not hold on so tight. It doesn't mean I can be all willy-nilly about everything and just, you know, stop being healthy. And like, you still have those good habits, but you can only control so much, and being able to just let go is a very freeing feeling. And I go through waves of it where I'm good for a while, and I'm like, man, I feel really good just kind of being at peace with the plan. And then there's times where I kind of revert back to my old ways of wanting to kind of take reins again and hey, let me redirect this. But that's the journey of faith, right? Like you're kind of always iterating on that. And it's just been awesome, man. Like, you know, I remember like Easter service this last year. Like, I'm not a really emotional guy, but now that I have a daughter, like I'm way more soft. And I was just like in the front row, and the pastor was talking about his daughter and how she was in the ICU for like 3 weeks and all this. And he's telling the story, and like, I'm just like in the front row, just like crying, you know, like a 37-year-old grown ass man, because he was talking about his daughter, but weaving it in through like the message that day. And I was like, man, that's a really good sign. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully no one saw me, but like, that's a changed man right there. Right. And that's only because of faith in God in the bigger plan.
Do you think that like you went through some hard times that led you to pour into discovering God more and learning about God more? A lot of people will talk about God will allow the house of cards to come down in your life, especially to teach you something, or especially if you're not paying attention, or especially if you need to give up and surrender more. Like 3 years ago when you started diving in more, do you feel like the house of cards was coming down?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think I thought I had life all figured out until I hit 30. You know, and I had achieved a good amount of things. I had a good career in the military, and I kind of checked all the boxes of what I wanted to do. And then like, it was like, oh, you think you got it figured out? Like, watch this. And, you know, so I had to go through a divorce, being active duty and running a company at the same time, you know, and running a company with your spouse is difficult. So kind of that took its toll. So went through that, and then, you know, ended up having a daughter, and, trying to balance that, and that led me to decide to get out of the service because like I wanted to be present. So that transition and just a bunch of other stuff, it was just like it all happened in like a 3 or 4 year period. And I was like, man, this has been, I'd always be like, all right, that was a rough year. Like there's no way the next year can be worse. And then it would be worse.
Oh,
and I would get to like New Year's Eve and be like, I'd look back and I'd be like, man, you just got your ass handed to you, but hey, it's all right. Next year it'll be better. And then like it like would multiply. So, I do think there's a big, I think that there's a lot of legitimacy to that. And in a way I almost feel bad that it took that happening to like take me back to church. You know what I mean? Like I almost felt selfish of, okay, I'm only coming to you in a moment of need because I'm desperate. You know what I mean? But obviously there is incredible grace there. You know what I mean? So, but I did feel that like, okay, I'm literally, this is my last resort. So here I am. But just, and it's awesome how stronger it gets the more you're thinking about it, and the more you go on Sunday, and the more, I read like a morning devotional that's just a quick little 1-pager, all that adds up, man. And it does make your faith stronger. And I think it just helps with my overall temperament, and, being a little less stressed out, knowing that, okay, like you're not driving this thing anyway. So be a good person, be disciplined, control what you can control, but like the big stuff, you just got to let it go, and try to live in the moment a little bit more,
For sure.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I think that I would assume that like your house of cards falling experience is similar to mine, because my assumption here is that we probably have one of the same characteristics that is really tricky when it comes to surrendering to God, and that characteristic is this like performance-based mindset. And I even there's a guy named Brian Schwartz who does the daily prayer in the MTNTOUGH app, and he's like my spiritual gangster mentor. Like that guy is a legend, he's so real, so authentic, but also can like unpack with me like every word of the Bible. So we've been digging into this performance mindset thing, and I still am not comfortable balancing it out in my brain, because the performance mindset, if you think about your life, has led to so many good things. Like you wanting to be the best, you wanting to win, you wanting to do a good job, you wanting to work harder than anyone else in the room. 99% of the time leads to a good outcome. But it can also lead to the house of cards falling in like this crisis moment, because you can only perform for so long, and then the wins are these worldly wins. And so I have had a similar crash and burn related to that, and I love unpacking it, because I still don't feel like it's a black and white, like, oh yeah, I got it. Like, yeah, you need to turn some of this stuff off. It's like, well, yeah, this performance stuff, it can work in so many different environments. In those environments, people are going to let you know that you did a great job. That might lead to financial rewards. That might lead to business rewards, sports rewards. Hunting is all about, can you outwork the next guy in the backcountry a lot of times? Can you outlast the next guy? Can you be there when the storm comes, when everyone else goes home? Because it's a timing thing. It's like an attrition thing. And so reconciling that with just like being still with the Lord is hard for me.
Spot on, man.
Dude.
Spot on. Yep. We're never going to solve it completely, but the fact that we're thinking about it and talking about it, like that's a big start, right? And yeah, it's ironic. Those two almost are very contradictory to themselves. And I think if there's a way to find the perfect balance where, you harness that kind of type A personality for the things that produce, abundance and surplus in your life, but still have the ability to know, when to turn that off, to fully submit to the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost an impossible task, but, just being close to achieving it is, I think, would be a big win, So
have you had that performance thing since you were a kid, you think?
Yeah. And, I think back, man, it's like, because my parents didn't really push us to be these like type A, like hyper achievers. Like I was the youngest I got two older brothers. So I think part of it was just being in a household of boys. It was just hyper competitive, and we were doing sports all the time. But that was just like the standard. I mean, I still remember like, when I was little, like this, there's so much foreshadowing to this of like what I would later become. But like we had like those encyclopedias and dictionaries, like, remember it was like, you get the encyclopedia that was like A through Z.
Yeah.
I would throw those in, and then we had like a Bible in the house, and I would throw them in my like JanSport book bag when I'm like first grade, and I would run the steps in our house, and I'd put on the Rocky soundtrack on like the tape player. And then I'd have my dad throw my legs down, like the leg lifts, I'd put you would stand above me and
hold
like,
his ankles,
and then I would jump rope in the living room, and like all these like, and then we had a hill on our house. I'd run the hill. It's hilarious, because in hindsight, that was the beginning of me thinking like, all right, I got to train for my sport, and I was like, I don't know, 8. Can you imagine if you saw a little 8-year-old like running the steps in a house with the Rocky soundtrack going like every day?
That is pretty epic, though.
So I don't know what instilled that, but that was there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself throughout those different phases. Like I always had to get straight A's. You know what I mean? Like if I got a 97 on a math test, I was like bummed about it. You know what I mean? And I took all the advanced classes, and same thing with football and sports. I lived in the weight room every second I could, and would get out to the practice field and run gassers, and I was doing all the stuff. And I don't know where the motivation came from, but it was like a lot of just a lot of pressure of like, this is the standard I'm expecting of myself. And then same thing when I played football in college, same idea. And then, competed in the CrossFit Games, and then, went on to the military career. And it was always the exact same mindset, and definitely with the business too. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, this is a no fail. We're going to literally outwork everyone. We don't know what the heck we're doing, but we're just going to be scrappy for so long that like, they just can't kill us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Perseverance.
And 5 years of that, with just Mal and I running Born Primitive, that was exactly what we did. You know what I mean? There was nothing fancy about it. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, So I'm glad that I had that mindset, but it definitely can lead to that check engine light coming on at some point. And I think that's probably kind of what happened, you know, in the last couple of years is it finally, you know, because also like your motivation for achievement matters too. And I think a lot of my motivation in the early years was to prove people wrong, because I was like in the shadows of my brothers, because they were both like highly accomplished athletes. Yeah. So by the time I got to high school, they're like, oh, this is like the third Hanlon. And I was very underdeveloped. I remember like my sophomore year, I was like 6'1", 130. You know what I mean? Like I kind of matured really late. So they think it's going to be this like third like really good athlete, and they see me and they're like, where did you come from? Right. So I had that chip on my shoulder, and you know, I did prove them wrong. Right. And then you know, even with Born Primitive, like I created this chip on my shoulder, like we're competing against all these brands that, you know, some of them now that are equal competitors have raised over $100 million in capital, right? And they were doing it full time. And it's like I was active duty in the military, and we raised no capital, and there's just two of us, and I'm doing it while being, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was like I always had that underdog, like, mentality. All right, you guys have all these resources, you got all this private equity money, and we're competing in the same space. You have 60 hours a week to dedicate to this, and you're getting 8 hours of sleep, and I gotta go do all this crazy training, and then like at night try to like scrap together some emails, and you know what I mean? Try to run this thing with Mal. So, you know, I always had that, but I think that kind of chip on your shoulder, like prove the world wrong, you know, doesn't last forever. You know what I mean? Because at some point you're not the underdog anymore. You know what I mean? And I still try to create that with Born Primitive, but I'm like, hey, like that's not really a believable story anymore. Like you were at one point, but you know, you got 115 employees now, and you're sold all over the world, and you're doing all these things. Like you're established, and that era and that chapter has come and gone. Yeah. So now what motivation are you going to use now? And fortunately, I've been able to get a lot of purpose on, you know, using our organization as a way to do good for others. So like, I think that's probably my new like thing that fires me up that has replaced it. And it's probably a much healthier source of energy than like,
it's a better fuel for sure.
You know what I mean? Then, all right, I'm just going to be an overachiever, and, you know, I'm going to, you know, flick the middle finger to all these people in 10 years when, you know, they doubted me and I went down and did the thing, you know? Yeah. So
for more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org. I know you see that a lot, actually, like for an analogy or metaphor of that, like in competitive sports, like CrossFit or running, ultra running, marathons. You think about like the Goggins of the world. There's a lot of people that run off that short burning fuel of, I'm going to prove people wrong, or they told me I couldn't do it. But that is not ever like a healthy, sustainable, long burning fuel. But it does burn so hot. Yeah. It's like octane when you need it. But then when it's out, man. Yeah. Yeah.
That NOS button got hit too many times. Yeah. It's like, it'd be like a pre-workout. Like you hit 300 milligrams of caffeine, like, and you haven't had caffeine in a while, like you're good, you know? Yeah. Later in the day, you might be like, ooh, I kind of regret that. So, yeah.
But it does feel weird because for me, that was one of my fuels I had for a while, especially in like my marathon days, was it's like a chip on the shoulder, prove them wrong fuel. And when that mentality shifts and you go into more healthy, sustainable fuels, like I'm doing this because I can, I'm doing this because like God gave me these legs and these lungs, I'm doing it because I want to be able to hunt with my grandkids when they are here. When you switch from that like fast burning fuel to that more healthy fuel, I definitely went through like a little crisis moment because you don't feel as competitive as you used to, and it feels super weird. because all of a sudden you're like, you don't feel like you can push as hard as you once did because that mentality shifted. Did you feel anything like that?
I still feel it. Yeah. And I wrestle with that because, I try to be honest with myself of like, hey, do you still have that eye of the tiger that you once had? Like I'm thinking, man, you used to be a freaking savage. A couple hours of sleep, you were good to go. You got home from a long day of work on, the military job. You were totally fine firing up the computer and, running that thing till 1, 2 in the morning and doing Zoom calls at 2 a.m. on deployments, like all the things.
Yeah.
And now I'll get home after a long day and it's 6 o'clock and I'm like, I'm exhausted. You know what I mean? And I don't want to open up my computer, after I put my daughter to bed. And then, so there's a lot of like self-pressure of like, hey, have you lost the edge, or, hey, have you put in work long enough that you've earned the right to not have to do that anymore? Right. But yeah, I do wrestle with that. And even with like, outside of just the business stuff, just with like discipline, I feel like a lot of shame when I'm not like perfectly disciplined into many things. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, like when I get up in the morning, like I try to read that devotional and I try to like maybe journal a little bit. And I try not to drink the coffee right away and I hydrate. Like I try to do all the things. Sometimes I'll cold tub, but sometimes, man, I'll wake up in the morning and I really want to have the coffee right away. And I like watch the sunrise. And then I'm like feeling like, I'm undisciplined because I didn't stick to my regimen. You know what I mean? Or, maybe the workout, I go in there and I want to do like a real, brutal workout. And after I warm up, I'm just kind of not feeling it. I'm like, you know what, let me just do like an active recovery day and just do like 20 minutes on the row and 15 on the assault bike, and then do a really good stretch and roll out of here. And I'm in and out in an hour. You know what I mean? So, but then I'm like, hey man, like you don't all, you know what I mean? Like, but I have this, like the devil on my shoulder being like, you used to be hard. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're just going to do a light row and do zone 2. you know what I mean? Like, old you would have been like, F you, you know what I mean? We're going, you know? So I still wrestle with that. But I think I'm moving towards like the acceptance of, hey man, you don't have to be a maniac all the time. And I think that source of motivation is a much healthier long-term play. But but as you said, it does take a little bit of an adjustment, and it's always a work in progress. It's not like you've made it and you're like, okay, I'm finally there. And so sometimes I'll have good days and bad days with that. You know what I mean? Where it's like the balance of showing yourself grace for not being, that perfect type A, like, achieving tasks and all the things versus like balancing with like, hey man, lighten up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you didn't read your daily devotional one day, like you're fine. You know what I mean? So
leaders are just hard on themselves, man. Like harder than anyone else. Like you can go to an awesome men's group. Like let's say you have an awesome men's group back home and it's full of like 12 hard chargers, like all really good dudes that you admire and respect. There's a principle where 6 of those men are going to struggle with laziness and 6 of those men are going to struggle with worry. And you're never, as an outsider, going to know once who that guy is. Because like the guy that struggles with laziness, he's going to still come in and crush his workout for 2 hours hard every day, and he's going to be a beast. But then he's going to go home and watch Netflix for like 4 hours. The guy struggling with worry, he is just always like looking for that next performance edge. And he thinks that like he's going to run out of money tomorrow. His business is going to go out of business tomorrow. Like it's just that like the devil's hitting us from 2 different sides. But if you have the worry one, you're definitely not going to have the laziness one because that brain's always going. So there's no time for laziness, but they come at both of us.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, choose your heart, I guess, right?
Yeah. I think it's cool, though, with you, because I just sitting here listening, I think that I'm a big believer that, like, God gives us all an assignment, and that assignment is going to last multiple decades, whether we crash and burn or whether we make some really bad choices, or even when it comes to identity. Like if God took Born Primitive from you tomorrow, I still think your assignment would be the same. And I think like from watching you over the last couple of years, I think your assignment is like helping veterans, man. like, I think that's what you would be doing whether you had born primitive or not. And I think God has like given you that gift in such a unique way, like where you have a unique ability and style and deep care that's not like, it's not government red tape, it's not cheesy, it's not artificial. Like, one of your assignments is just helping dudes, not only veterans but LEOs at the same time. And like, I think I could see you doing that for like the next 20 years regardless of like where you're working at.
Yeah, man, it's a good point. I appreciate that, and it does give me a lot of purpose, and it wasn't really by design, but it absolutely is. And as I kind of hit on earlier, I would say that's my main motivator in Born Primitive now is one, okay, let's create abundance and surplus here so we can have the ability to help others. And also the responsibility of now we're employing like 100, over 100 families, and healthcare benefits and all, of course, a regular wage and, a good stable career. Like, that really matters to me too. Like, I get a lot of joy of just that idea, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That, someone's entire family is on our, like, we're covering the insurance on, and you know what I mean? Like, just the every couple of weeks they're getting something direct deposited, and as long as the train keeps rolling, it's going to continue. Yeah. So I think that's where I get a lot of, joy and motivation now. But yeah, with the veteran stuff, man, it's been really fulfilling, and I'm hoping we can take that even further, because now that like as our platform grows, it almost puts more pressure on me. At least this is internal pressure I create on myself of, okay, now you don't have a choice. Like, this is a moral obligation that you need to fulfill. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's a bit of a calling, and maybe similar to the calling that you're kind of going through right now. Yeah. Where it's a strong voice telling you, hey, maybe you've been blessed with a unique gift here. And maybe one of those for me is like, I know how to maybe run an apparel brand. I don't know. And okay, I've given you that gift, so use it for good. And that's really come to life in the last couple of years with the stuff that we've done around Veterans Day and paying off the medical bills. And, we're going to do that again this year. So hopefully we can keep it going. And I think hopefully we're just scraping the surface on what that looks like. And, I think you bring up a good point about like alluding to balance, because I think we all need to kind of red sell ourselves that, okay, if you were to pull out one major thing from your life right now, how balanced would you be? Right? Because that can happen. And particularly like looking at, some of my teammates in the SEAL teams, guys were so dedicated to the job. And this is not because they're bad men or because they're not family men, but like they were over-indexed on being good operators and being reliable and proficient at the expense of, being present for their family. And missing the softball. And some of it, obviously, you can't control. Like, if you're on a work trip or on a deployment, like that's, but hey, when we're back in garrison, maybe don't be going into work on a Saturday to work on your kit when you've been gone for 2 months. Mm-hmm. I think you can get there early on Monday and switch out your radio pouches, because we're doing MAROPS this week and last week was land warfare, whatever it is, the little tweaks you got to do your kit. Like, you don't have to go in on Saturday and miss your daughter's softball game. I love that you're motivated and you want to be the most squared away guy in the platoon, but like, have a little balance, because guess what, man, there's going to come a time where this title is removed. And if you've just done 20 years on the teams and now you have, you've gone through 2 divorces, you have 3 kids that you're not close with, and now you're 44 years old, what balance do you have? You have nothing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you imagine that hard start, and recalibration. Oh, right. Yeah. So I think, particularly for guys like you and me, that like a lot of our life does revolve around our business. Mm-hmm. I've always think about, all right, if you were to remove Born Primitive tomorrow, do you still have good balance? And for me, I think that's a very confident yes, because my role as a father is my number one purpose for sure by 100x multiple, and also my faith in God, right? So if you were to now, would there be an adjustment of not having this giant thing you have to feed and nurture? Yes, but it wouldn't be like all of a sudden, okay, I have no sources of fulfillment in my life anymore. Yeah. And I think for any of us, we should kind of reflect on, those components of our life. All right, am I keeping a balanced life in terms of what brings me purpose? And if you're over-indexed in one way, like, you might want to make a few tweaks. You know what I mean? Because eventually that thing might get taken away, and it will be outside of your control.
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, it's going to happen to most of us. I mean, that job transition, that health crisis, that car wreck, like if all our identities in one thing.
Could happen instantly, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that's just an important thing. And it can be a bit sobering, I think, to think about that, because if you are over-indexed, you'll say, damn, if that thing was removed tomorrow, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think there's some exceptions. Like if you're a pro athlete and you're in the prime of your career and, you know, I mean, you're 24 years old and you're running back in the NFL, I would say like, okay, that's the time, over-index for the next 5 years, because this is going to be a flash in the pan and it's never going to happen again. So go try to make $50 million for your family, and then you can be a little bit more present. So I think there's obviously exceptions to the rule where I think over-indexing into one area is actually strategic for the long play. But you know, that can't be something you do for 3 decades and then you're like, oh, I want to get in, you know, a better relationship with my kids now. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're 55. You just made a bunch of money, but what for? You know what I mean? Now they're all grown and you didn't have those moments, you know? So something to think about.
I know we've talked about it on this show before, that it's almost like not even thinking about it as balance. It's almost potentially a better visualization is harmony, like a great band would have. So like you would have a great guitarist, lead singer, electric guitar, drummer, maybe a keyboard, and they all have like a unique component that's making the song phenomenal. Like that. But some individuals in that band, some instruments in that band have to play more than others at times. But as long as they all do that correctly, the right timing, the right notes at the right second, you get this beautiful harmony. And I almost visualize it more like that than balance, because like you just said, there are key things that are very helpful to go all in on. But as long as you are going all in on that thing while remaining harmony with the rest of your band, which might be your kids, it might be your wife, it might be your parents, it might be your friends, your community, you can maintain that harmony without just only having a lead singer and a guitar. And then if that's gone, everything's gone.
That's a great analogy, man. Well said.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm going to have to steal that.
So it came from another podcast.
Oh, nice. Nice.
When they mentioned it, I was like, dang, that is so much better. Because balance is kind of BS, I think, where like to build Born Primitive, you couldn't have been balanced.
No way.
But you could have had harmony. You could have had better harmony than potentially you had, and you're that's something we're always going to be working on. But man, some of these things you have to go all in for certain periods, certain chunks of time. I don't think that like a work-life balance that's communicated sometimes from like society drives me nuts sometimes, because there are guys that latch onto that. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, I have to be home at 4 because I got to be there for my wife and kids. I'm like, I get that, but it's also like a man's job to create impact for our family. So there are certain ways to define that, I think. Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of gray area in there, because I totally agree with you, because it's like, there's times where, you know, as men, we need to leave the house, so to speak, mm-hmm. and go do things. And particularly if it's in a provider role, like, hey, there's going to be times where you got to burn the midnight oil a little bit, but hey, it's for the family. You know what I mean? It's not out of some selfish, fulfillment you're getting out of it. But I do think there's been a bit of overcorrection of that, like kind of punchline of like, you got to go to all the softball games and all the recitals. And it's like, well, pretty sure if I miss a dance recital, when she's 25, she's not going to remember that. And if it's this one meeting, like I can't miss because these guys are coming into town, and it's, you know what I mean? And me not being there has a big strategic implication on like how it goes. Like, okay, you're going to miss the dance recital, right? It's okay. Mm-hmm. Just don't be the guy that misses all the dance recitals, right? But don't be the guy that goes to all of them either, you know?
For sure.
But you know, at the end of the day, do your best and show yourself grace in that process, because there's no playbook to follow here, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code MOUNTAINTOUGH, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. Do you feel like have you had that calling for LEOs and veterans right away since like day one of Born Primitive?
Well, I think in the beginning, man, like, Mal and I were just, we grew up in the Midwest, just typical, like, patriotic, like, conservative Midwest people, you know what I mean? Love our country, love what it stands for. And so in the early days of Born Primitive, we just wanted to at least try to make some impact on the charitable front. And of course, there were way less decimal places on the checks back then. It was still the same sentiment of like, let's give what we can. And as the platform has grown, we want to make sure we maintain that promise. And particularly in the last couple of years, like I've gotten kind of like emotionally invested. Like now I have like a personal kind of conviction to really leverage our platform that we've built and have been so lucky to build. I mean, I'm the first one to say, like, so many things had to happen right for us to build what we built. I mean, it's a 1 in 10 million outcome, and so I'm not naive to think that this was all because of my own skill and effort. Like, a lot of it was right place, right time, right? So because of that, it's like, okay, you were blessed with this thing. You need to leverage it for good. So last year, and this is when things really ramped up. We had an idea, and I think I spoke to you about it, of, is there a world where we could pay off a bunch of veteran medical bills? And I got linked up with an organization called Forgive Co. that basically facilitates like the debt pay down. So I basically wire the money to them, and then they go find the debt and like work with all the debt collectors and actually facilitate the transaction. So rad. So it's actually a cool thing. And I was like, so I had asked them, can you do debt that is specific to veterans that's only classified as medical debt? Because it was important to me, like, medical debt is unique because it's not, you didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to get in a car accident today and get a $50,000 medical bill I can't afford. Yeah. It's due to a unforeseen circumstance that blindsides most people and can put them in a real difficult situation. So, oh boy, we got the dog here. You want me to go shut the door?
Yeah.
All right.
He was in the truck, so.
I'll get it.
I wonder if Gibson let it out.
Did he just jump up? Should I lock this? Sorry.
I was like, what the heck?
Sorry, we have a giant German Shepherd barge in on the podcast.
It's just a woolly mammoth.
So I basically wanted to help out veterans, because these medical bills were something that was outside of their control and can really have devastating consequences, and particularly because we're learning more about veteran suicide, like a lot of it can be tied to like financial distress can be a contributing factor to, like, nudging people closer to that edge.
For sure.
So we decided to try to pledge 100% of profits for 4 days, ending on Veterans Day last year. And the goal was $5 million we wanted to try to pay off. And it was like, hey, let's see what happens. And I got really lucky. Like, I got to go on Fox News and we had a bunch of people talking about it. And we just blew us away, man. We ended up paying off $11 million in veteran medical bills. And
dude,
that ended up being
nuts.
5,800 veterans were debt free by Christmas, which, as you know, like the holidays can bring even more financial stress for people. So that's why I loved it even more. Is like, okay, I know a lot of these families that are like paycheck to paycheck. They got 3 little kids running around,
Christmas
especially
coming.
as a girl dad. And like, you want to provide for, you want to get your princess like all the toys she wants, and so. We were able to do that. I was able to personally call a lot of these people, and that's where it really kind of rocked me, because, when you call like a single mother of 2 who's already working 2 jobs, her wages are getting garnished, her credit is in the tank because, debt collectors, as soon as it goes to collections, your credit, I think, drops by 150 points or a lot. And then you can't sign a lease for an apartment, or you can't buy, if you want to buy a used car, your interest is 30%. I mean, there's all these like downstream effects that it creates.
Snowballs.
So to be able to call like somebody like that and say, hey, my name's Bear, I'm with this company Born Primitive, you probably never heard of, but like, I just want to let you know, like, that medical bill you had, like, we paid it off, like, you're good to go. And then you just hear silence on the phone for 5 seconds, and then you hear someone sobbing on the other line, and then she tells you the backstory of like, I didn't know, I was hopeless. Then you're like, man, this is
dang, dude.
Now ignorance is bliss, man, because now I'm not ignorant to this anymore. And
those phone calls had to be nuts.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I mean, there was a bunch of those. I had a guy write me a letter, basically kind of implying like he was at the last resort and was asked God for a sign, and he got the letter the next day in the mail saying we had paid off his bill. So he wrote me a handwritten letter. He's got real shitty handwriting, like it was like, but it was perfect.
Yeah.
And ended up checking himself into rehab, and then on Christmas we sent him a bunch of gear in rehab. Like we sent him like $4,000 worth of clothes because I knew he'd be alone in rehab on Christmas. And there was another guy. There was a Marine. His bill was $183,000, and I was able to text him on the Marine Corps' birthday, November 10th last year, and let him know like that bill was gone, and he had been partially paralyzed. He had 3 kids, like just rough stories, man.
Yeah.
So obviously it was mission success and super motivating, but I left that thinking like, okay, this was good, but like now you need to do more, because this was a test run and you killed it. But like, how do we make this bigger? How do we 5-10x this thing? Because we started to get messages after this of people saying, hey, and they were like really rough circumstances. Like, I have a $60,000 medical bill. Like, I saw the thing you did. Can you help us out? And as you know, like, you're running a company, like you can't just say yes to everyone or you'll be bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I have to do it through like an official vehicle, like Forgive Code. You know what I mean? So I can't just like, oh, here's another one. Like, it doesn't work like that, because these people are randomly selected, through, which I like that, because there's no bias or anything, from anyone from any walk of life, regardless of their political affiliation, race, gender, any of those things. Like, we're completely agnostic to that. But I was like, man, we got to do more. So the first thing I thought of was like, how do we bring another organization into this to make it bigger? And I was out at Salt Lake City, and I was on the Black Rifle Coffee podcast with Evan Hafer, their co-founder. And once the cameras were off, I was like, hey, dude, I need 60 seconds to pitch you on this. And I told him what we had done, and I said, hey, I've seen how much you guys have given back in the past. Like, how about you join us next Veterans Day, and like, let's try to more than double this thing.
Dang.
And it was an immediate yes. He was like, I love it. I shared some of the stories, and he was like, tell me what you need. So I flew back out there in the spring of this year, and like, we started doing like kind of the mission planning for it. So we're going to rerun it and hopefully make it bigger. So from November 7th through November 11th, we're gonna commit to paying off up to $25 million in veteran medical bills. So we'll each do 12.5 if we reach the goal, which would be awesome. And we've actually already done $5 million. So we did $5 million in July because I wanted there to be more real stories that we could tell during the campaign.
Yeah.
And one of them was really neat. There was a woman, her bill was $341,000. Gold Star spouse, husband was an Army infantry, killed in the turret roadside bomb, and she was an Army veteran herself, and they have 2 kids, and she got in this horrific car accident a few years ago, and the bill was $341,000. She had to get, I think, airlifted. She had like 18 plates put in her face, and this bill has just been looming on the horizon for her, this storm cloud that just follows her everywhere she goes. So me and Matt Best, the other co-founder of Black Rifle, we were texting like, dude, we need to fly out there and we should hand deliver her this letter because that would be pretty cool. So just a couple weeks ago, we went out to Denver and met her after work, and we gave her the letter in person. We're like, hey, we want you to know this is real, this isn't a hoax, because she thought it was a prank.
She's like, it's a scam.
Oh, yeah. She totally thought it was a scam, which was so funny. Because Forgiveco was texting her like, hey, no, this is real, this is our organization. Here's Born Prim's website. They even sent her a clip of me on Instagram, it's a real person. This is this crazy guy with the long lion's mane hair.
Yeah.
So. These are the kind of the micro examples of the real impact that this campaign has. So we're fired up, man. I think that the coolest thing is the customer comes out and supports it. So I'm simply facilitating it, right? I'm not really actually doing anything. Yes, we're putting a lot of work to organize it, but the customers are the ones that make it happen. And that's why the punchline this year we're saying is stronger together, because we're going to get 20, 30, 40,000 people come to the site and shop because they're like, hell yeah, I want to be a part of that and support that. And that really is so humbling for me to have built something that to even facilitate something to that magnitude. And looking beyond this, because you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, really, because the debt is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And even if we were paying off $100 million a year, you're still probably not making progress. So I'm going to go up to D.C. in a couple weeks and meet with a bunch of senators and congressmen, as well as hopefully the secretary of the VA. And I'm basically going to say, hey, guys, I have what will likely be 25,000 plus case studies of medical bills that we will have paid off by the end of this. Why don't we work together, use this data set as a way to identify deficiencies in VA and in some cases maybe TRICARE, and let's work together to help, to get to the root of some of these problems. Because some of the people I talked to is because they went to the wrong hospital, or the claim was denied and it shouldn't have been, but they couldn't get through to everyone. So eventually it just goes to collections and they throw their hands up well, I guess I have and they can't afford the $15,000 bill. They're never going to, that'll take them 10 years to pay off. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that's the long-term approach to this is, hey, let me leverage my platform, and for better or worse, given my background in the military and what we've done with Born Primitive, it's a lot easier for me to get those meetings now. So it's okay, now let's leverage that kind of status to be able to meet with people that maybe Joe Schmo couldn't meet with, to go to the table and say, hey, let's work on this together and let's make it happen. So I'm heading up there in a couple weeks. I got 12 meetings lined up in one day. I'm going to throw the suit on. I'm catching a 5 a.m. flight. First meeting's at 8, and then I'm flying out at 10 p.m. that night. It's going to be a really long day. But we're going to see if we can get the lawmakers and the secretary of the VA to say, you know what, we love this. But I love the idea, man. It's I'm not a big fan of the government solving our problems. I like the idea of let's solve our own problems. So that's why I really like working with another veteran-owned company. Of that's what we were taught to do in the military is fix problems. What we were taught is there's 2 things we use to solve our problems is teamwork and aggression, right? And maybe the aggression part isn't as relevant as it was.
Intensity, though.
Yeah. But teamwork absolutely is. And so to kind of in the spirit of that kind of military heritage, using that same formula, in the civilian world now, is pretty cool, and I'm excited to see what it becomes.
Man, it's so cool too, because Black Rifle's assignment since the beginning too has been taking care of LEOs and veterans, and for that to come together now at this point, both of you down your journey a ways, it's kind of the story is old as time, is God allows us to build a platform and then use that platform for good if we want to. And it's a perfect example of how your journey has been. And debt is so massive in terms of how it negatively controls our lives. And The Bible warns us of that also, like a slave to our lender. And if I get in a huge car wreck, it's not like I really chose to be in that slave to lender relationship, but I still am.
Yeah.
And it affects like how I think, how positive I am, how much joy I have, decisions I make, places I live, where I want to move to. And so for all of these medical debt bills to be forgiven, it's got to be so cool for someone to get that call and not even know who Born Primitive is.
Yeah.
Like,
and most of them don't, you know,
Yeah.
like we're big, but like we're not Nike.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of them are like, oh, I had to look you guys up. And yeah, once I saw it, it's kind of cool. That's
got to be crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, I think if we do 25 million this year, it'll likely be probably well north of 15,000 veterans, you know, that are on that list, based on like kind of the average amount that's typically paid off. And that's pretty cool, man, because that's thousands of families that, especially like I said, right before the holiday, I think that makes it even better.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, there's probably some parents out there that are like, how the heck are we going to afford Christmas presents this year? You know what I mean? Like my wages are already getting garnished 20%, this and that, and our credit's trash, and I'm paying 30% on my credit cards that I'm paying the minimum payment on, and you know, just that's a tough spot, man.
It's insane.
This is hopefully something that'll lighten up that rucksack a little bit. It's not going to take away all the problems, of course. You know, there's other areas of stress, as we know.
Yeah.
When it rains, it pours sometimes, but this is hopefully a practical gesture, but also a symbolic gesture of letting them know they're not alone. And that was when we met the woman in Denver. That was like her biggest takeaway was like, I kind of thought, you know, you feel so expendable when you get out of the military. It's like, all right, you know, what have you done for me lately? And once you're out, it's the end of it. And she felt very isolated in that. Like you lose that brotherhood and the close proximity to like-minded people and, you know, being a part of a team. So she was like, wow, this reminds me that I'm actually not, that brotherhood and that community is still there. But she was like, man, it's been a minute since I felt that.
Dude.
You know, so.
And that's a game changer.
Yeah.
When you know someone cares about you, even if you've never met them.
Yeah.
It makes me think too, like before Mountain Tough, we've talked about it a lot on this show, but Lindsay and I were doing child rescue in Uganda, and then the Uganda experience led to Mountain Tough, and then now we're getting into quite a bit of this counter-trafficking stuff. But both on the Uganda front, when you go to Africa, the problems are so massive. And so you feel like you can't do much that's going to actually help. That same feeling is there on the counter-trafficking side. But there's like an old cliche like story of like the starfish principle. So 1,000 starfish wash up on the shore, and like a father's walking with his son, and his son's like, oh, we got to save some of these starfish. And the dad's like, no, there's so many, we can't save all these starfish. And the son picks one up and tosses it back into the ocean. And he's like, I saved that one. And that's so much of what like is true, is like that lady that you wiped out that debt for, she could now have like generational positive impacts that she never would have if you didn't do that. Even though the problem looks so massive, it's like just because a problem's big doesn't mean we should not do anything about it. It means we should do a lot about it, because every single case is like a life that's going to have not only generational ripple effects, but a lot of times it's like what's going on in the house informs what's going on in the community, and what's going on in the community informs how the country is doing. So not only will it have generational, like if that household is doing better, now that community's doing better, now the country's doing better, even though it's a massive, massive problem. So what you guys are doing is incredible, man.
Well, thank you, man. That's a great way to think of it. I had not really, thought of it in that light, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like every life.
And we can't let these giant problems lead to just inaction, because you throw your hands up and say, oh, well, it's too big. Like what? I can't help it. If there's $3 billion in outstanding debt, like what's 25 million? Like we got to start somewhere. And maybe that leads to some crazy momentum. And same thing with you're doing. You probably feel like, maybe you're making a small impact, but hey, there's momentum to that. You know what I mean? And if we can get more men signed up for the stuff that you're trying to be a part of, and we see it as our obligation, and it becomes a bit of a viral thing, or there's momentum behind it, then that first seed you planted turns into a giant oak tree. You know what I mean? So I think that's encouraging to think of it like that.
Yeah, that starfish thing always helped me out because it's like, I think as men too, we shouldn't be scared of fights that maybe we can't win. Like just because, let's say it's so massive and it's never going away, like the counter trafficking thing, like child exploitation's been happening since the creation of time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it shouldn't be a fight that we're not entering into, even though we may never win in terms of wiping it off the face of the earth. It's still a justified fight. And I think like taking care of our LEOs and first responders is the same thing. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough Podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app.
Yeah, that trafficking stuff's wild, man. I know it's probably something, and we talked about this in the truck, where ignorance is bliss, but once you get a look behind the curtain, you can't look away. You know what I mean? And so I commend you for the road you're going down to be a part of that solution. And hopefully there's a world where the men that are on the other side of that are sleeping with one eye open, knowing that there's more men out there that are coming after them and trying to prevent them from doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? And maybe that will in time act as a deterrent. I know you'll never stop it, but maybe some people think twice about, hey, there's some people that might be watching me, and before I know it, my door's gonna be getting kicked in, and a barrel-chested bearded man's gonna be coming in with a suppressed rifle and putting it in my face at 4:00 in the morning and taking me to jail. That has an effect. Right, that's a psychological effect. So I'm praying for you guys, and maybe at some point I can get in the mix on that, man. Yeah.
Well, it's just been God, man. I mean, I've been telling a lot of people it wasn't something I was sitting around planning or thinking about, which I love that God kind of blindsides me with things sometimes. And I always feel like some of the callings he's put on my life have been like getting hit by a 2x4. And you're like, oh, well, now it's so obvious I have to do something.
Yeah.
And I like that because it's like, that creates like black and white obedience for me. It's like, if you say no to this, it's so obvious that you're obviously being disobedient. And that's how this one has been for me. Like he hit me with it, and it wasn't something I was planning, but then he made it so obvious. And then he made it very obvious that like the previous platforms that we've been working on led to us being effective in this platform, just like he's doing in everyone's life, which is really cool, especially when you can look at things. And it's always so nice to look at life backwards and you can see where like, oh, this thing built into this thing, which built into this thing. And so when things are going hard, that's exactly what he's doing, is he's getting you ready for something else. And I think that I love having guys like you on the podcast, because a big theme of the Mountain Tough podcast this year, for the last year, has been, I know that I'm not the only one feeling callings, and I know that you're not the only one feeling callings. But what I do know is a lot of men are hearing things that God wants them to do, and they're not doing it. Mm-hmm. And I want to shatter that, because it's like, why aren't you doing these things in your heart, and that the Holy Spirit is nudging you to do? And I think like you and I probably have a bias towards action, but man, so many dudes are locked up with like fear, a lot of fear of what other people are going to think, and a lot of fear of financial security. Mm-hmm. They're like, dude, I'll go broke if I do that. And so I like to see how we can motivate those guys.
Yeah, because change can be uncomfortable, man. People get comfortable in their kind of daily battle rhythm, right? Mm-hmm. And to say like, hey, you're going to, totally change course on your business that you spent years building and go into this completely different thing, like that doesn't land with a lot of people. But I love what you said about like the calling was so obvious, because I think, in hindsight, there were probably some things that were like, you got little nudges, right? That they weren't that strong. And, God was hoping you'd like, oh, well, I'm really in tune to that nudge. Let me run with it. But then finally he just had to smack you over the head with a 2x4 and say, all right, idiot, like I'm going to make this really obvious. And you're like, oh, right on. You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's a lot of listeners right now that might be, getting that nudge. And if it's something, if you're staring at the ceiling every night thinking about it, and it's that itch that you have to scratch, then, maybe that's your sign that, hey, venture out into the unknown a little bit and be able to assume a little risk, maybe not reckless risk, but I think a lot of success we achieve is like right at that threshold of risk. And I think I attribute a lot to my own success as being willing to take risk in my life. You know what I mean? Like going and doing like the SEAL teams was super risky. Like I probably shouldn't have made it. You know what I mean? Just that, you know what I mean? But that led to so many awesome lessons that I learned in my life, and so many awesome relationships with men way better than me, and all these, you know what I mean? But had I not been okay with, there's an 80% chance this doesn't work, then I would have never done it. And I would have just stayed in my comfortable life in Indiana. Mm-hmm. Same thing with starting a business, and, any of the things that we're going to do in the future, to be a part of the greater good. We got to overcome that initial resistance, because I think that's where the magic happens. So hopefully, that can be a nudge for your people listening. And if something just immediately became top of mind when you said that, like that's probably your thing. You know what I mean? The first thing you thought of when you were talking like that's probably your thing. So hey, explore that further, pray on it, and you know what I mean, and try to get clarity in what that means for you.
I totally agree, man. That's super helpful, because I think it is. A lot of guys will ask, like, how do I know I'm being called into something? I'm like, if it's something you can't stop thinking about, you probably need to take action on that thing. Like if you're thinking about it every day, like how can I help these veterans with their medical debt? Like it's something you need to work on. And we all have those things. Like there's a reason that we're thinking about them every day.
And that's your superpower, because guess what? When you finally lean into it, you know what I mean? You have an unlimited gas tank for that one effort. So it's like you will have a giant advantage. Hey, maybe it's like coaching wrestling for kids in the inner city. You know what I mean? You're going to set up a free after school whatever it is. There's so many different ways that we can be a part of that solution. And to like weaponize that energy, because once you lean into it, you're unstoppable.
Oh, yeah. And there's like supernatural capacity when you go into something like that you're supposed to go into. You like can't get tired.
Unlimited gas tank.
Yeah, flight to flight to flight, meeting to meeting to meeting, and you're like not tired. You're just charged up. And that's what guys want since we were kids. We want big battles that are full of risk and adventure, and then we get into our 30s and 40s and we shy away from it. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. Self-preservation.
Yeah.
And when you're taking care of other humans, it does affect your judgment a little bit more of like, when you're in your 20s, it's just like throw caution in the wind at everything. At least that's how I was, Now I'm a little bit more like, even like when my buddy's like, hey, do you want to go skydiving on the weekend? Like before when I didn't have a kid, it was like an immediate yes. And I'm like, all right, I know there's like a 0.1% chance, maybe less, I'm going to die. But like, I don't know if I need to spend my afternoon jumping out of planes with my buddies just to screw around anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your calculus is a bit different in life.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just getting soft. I don't know.
Yeah, it's calculus. And then I think it's, you do get to where you want to spend as much time as you can on worthwhile things. That one's been hitting me pretty hard lately. It's kind of scary and intimidating, but the math of like the average adult male is going to die at 70. And maybe we'll make it longer than that. Maybe we won't, or we could all die tomorrow of something crazy. But just the basic math is wild, dude. If the average adult American male lifespan is right around, it's like 73. So I'm 43. So that's like 30 years left to make an impact, as much impact for the kingdom as I can in 30 years. Mm-hmm. That's freaky for a couple reasons. One, you can be super healthy and fit into your 70s, but not like you are in your 30s or 40s. So there's a physical component into that calculation. So like physical capacity wise, you might live till you're 70 if you're lucky, but you might not be as fit and as active. Maybe let's say that lasts into 60. You're like 60s and you're still kind of a beast if you're lucky. So that's a factor. The other factor that freaks me out, dude, is my daughter's 13. We were talking about that this morning. It feels like I feel like I was just up in Bozeman labor and delivery, bringing her home the other day. So that's like 13 times 2 is almost 30. Like that's how much time we have left to do the things we want to do that matter. That's crazy.
Yeah, time gets wild when you have a kid, man.
Dude.
I've never thought about time more than I do right now. I'm 37. My daughter's 4.5. But like, to see, it's the snap of a finger, and it's been almost 5 years. It's crazy.
Crazy.
And it can mess with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think it's normal though. Like I think most of us in this phase, you start thinking about time a little bit more. You start thinking, for those that their parents are still alive, you start thinking about their mortality and seeing them age. That we're in this kind of weird in between, man. We're not in our 20s anymore.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit more maybe reflective on life and what's coming and the how finite time is and. But you just got to make the most of it, right? And that's when the make the days count.
Yeah.
And focus your time on what actually matters. What's going to matter in 30 years? It's your family.
Yeah.
Your faith in God, obviously.
Dude, it's cool. All these different seasons.
Yeah.
Well, as we close out, how do the listeners tactically know how to take advantage of the Veterans Day medical debt campaign?
Super simple, man. So like I said, from November 7th through the 11th, the campaign will run. So 100% of profits from both companies' websites will be pledged up to that $25 million in debt we're trying to pay off. So bornprimitive.com, blackriflecoffeecompany.com. We have a bunch of clothing from fitness to athleisure, jeans, flannels. I mean, we're both wearing the flannels right now, outdoor hunting line, tactical shoes. I mean, we got something for everyone. So if you need an excuse to shop in a guilt-free way and you're not going to get in trouble with your wife, or, hey, ladies, we have a ton of women's stuff too, and maybe have a cool story attached to it, this is the time. And, super grateful for Black Rifle joining us on this. So everything's fair game. Go get a bunch of good coffee from them. And hopefully, when the dust settles, so Veteran lands on a Tuesday this year. So Tuesday at midnight, obviously we'll come into work on Wednesday and crunch the numbers, and hopefully we can declare like mission accomplished on this. And then, my promise to, any of our customers is that, hey, this is just the start for us. But but the bigger these can be, the more momentum I can harness to like, really weaponize this and make it like that much more impactful in the future. And I think that's why, me going to DC and meeting with all these congressmen and senators in the VA and being able to give them this data set and saying, hey, this is who I am, here's my background, but hey, let's work together and be a part of this. I think there's a lot of really cool potential there. And I really, honestly, I want to find a world where I can expand this to the first responder audience. I'm dabbling with maybe a way to do that next year in 2026. Because, I don't want this to be a veteran thing. And I eventually, like, I don't want it to be a veteran or first responder. Like, everyone needs help, right? And just because you served your country doesn't necessarily mean you're, you should be given, favors and all this, but that's where we wanted to start. The core, the people that are really sacrificing for our country, is where we wanted to start. So I'm hoping, man, that when the dust settles and I look back on this 10 years from now, I'll go, damn, we were just getting started. That was in like the early phases of a much bigger effort that turns into something that I could have never imagined.
I know it well, man.
Yeah.
It's just going to grow. And it's super simple for our listeners. So
super simple.
They go to BP, order some gear, and then they go to Black Rifle and get some coffee or some anything from their site. Same week.
November 7th to the 11th, they'll run at the exact same time. Follow us on social. You'll see all the stuff we're putting out on social, and you'll see some of the storylines of some of the debt recipients, which is pretty cool. I think as consumers, particularly, especially in today's day and age, we have the ability to support brands that align with our values. We've always been very unapologetic in our approach of loving our country and what it stands for. And there was a time period where we were taking a lot of heat for that, and we stood our ground and we said, hey, this is just who we are, take it or leave it. And not necessarily in a controversial way, although some kind of took it as that. And I think people should know, as a consumer, you do have a say. Mm-hmm. And I really like, when I'm shopping as the consumer, supporting brands that align with my values. And I think we've presented a cool opportunity in that light, for this campaign. So if what we're talking about resonates and it fires you up, we'd love for you to come out and if you're new to the brand, like, awesome, love to, you're welcome to the family. And every dollar makes a significant impact towards the aggregate, and every person will receive a letter. I mean, it's really cool that Forgive Code, they did a video last year where they printed out all 5,800 letters.
Dude.
And they
that's a lot of letters.
They sped it up to like 10x speed, and they're all just shooting out of the printer. And it was like, this is what it looks like when you pay off $11 million in veteran medical bills. And that was really neat, man. So we shared that, and it got shared 1 million times. And it was like, wow, that really kind of puts it in perspective. And like I said, I think this year, if we do it, I think it'll be north of 15,000 people that'll get that random letter in the mail that they're probably going to think is a prank. Their credit will go up immediately, and hopefully a life-changing moment for them. So
that's nuts, dude. Like, the 5,800 letters printing off is like those 5,800 starfish being thrown back into those. Right. And that everyone makes a difference. That's a lot of family.
Well, I love what you said about, hey, you fix the family. That helps the community, then that permeates the society. Like, I've never thought of it like that, and I think that's such a great way to frame it up. Mm-hmm. So I might have to steal that too. Don't worry, I'll cite my sources.
You can steal it, dude.
My friend Dustin once told me.
I'm sure I got it from someone else.
Yeah, we're all just plagiarizing in the end anyway, right?
Well, thanks for coming out, man. It's been fun hanging with you, fun going to church, and proud of you. And it's been cool seeing you change over the last couple of years. Like,
thank you, man.
You've gone through some changes, and God's just chipping at both of us.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, man. And thanks for being a leader of men. We need that right now. And, for those of us that have a little bit of a megaphone or a platform, I think it's on us to try to set the example for other men and lead them. And hopefully, we're all in on this together in the end, man. So let's keep it going.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
What a great conversation with Bear. It's always awesome to have him swing by in the lab. I love his why and his purpose behind the company he has built. Remember, every single episode we are looking for that golden nugget. Bear and I talked a lot about a lot of different things in this one, but the golden nugget for me was you can build an organization that not only is profitable, but has the capacity and bandwidth to do an incredible amount of good. And we have several folks in the hunting industry that have done that as well. But Bears just and Born Primitive is a great example of they can build cool products and they can help a lot of athletes with their apparel, but they're also able to change a lot of lives through the process. So thanks for being here. Love you guys, and we will see you on the next episode.